The Cyclopean Ocean is the name given to the vast ocean that covers the entire Earth around the new Pangaea, an immense environment where abyssal depths can reach up to 18 kilometers in some places. Within these infinite spaces live immense and mysterious creatures that bear little resemblance to the animals from which they descended. Oozoud is an octopus that has developed a large membrane between its tentacles, allowing it to create a sort of pouch, making it appear larger than it actually is to impress its predators. Females use this pouch to nurture their offspring, with the young only emerging to learn to feed themselves. They venture out on their own when they feel ready to face the most imposing environment on this future planet. The sea eagle is an octopus capable of spending several minutes out of the water flying near coastal areas in the north of what was once North America and Africa. Sometimes, they can be observed inland, following rivers to find freshwater fish. However, they still spend much of their time in the water, using the skin membrane between their tentacles to both fly and swim, depending on the ecosystem they traverse. These animals live in groups of about 10 individuals. Their eyes are situated on mobile tentacles, allowing them to orient themselves in all directions, observing both what's in the water and above them. They can also assess for potential dangers before leaving the ocean. They are hermaphroditic animals, but like snails, they still engage in sexual reproduction. Like cetaceans 250 million years ago, these new cephalopods, once descendants of marine squids, ventured onto land and adapted to breathing air. Over time, some terrestrial species returned to marine environments, such as the dolphin squid. Their general appearance is a prime example of evolutionary convergence with dolphins or Mesozoic ichthyosaurs, indicating that this physiology seems most suitable for animals that were once terrestrial but returned to a marine environment. However, unlike previous animals, the dolphin squid lays eggs hidden in algae near the water's surface. Their lifestyle differs from that of dolphins. They are solitary and much less intelligent than the cetaceans of the Cenozoic era. Tunicates are animals closely related to vertebrates. They possess a neural cord that structures their organism. For millions of years, these animals were sessile, with some developing a sort of mouth. 200 million years later, most retain this overall appearance, but some, like the walking tunicate, have developed legs and can therefore move. Being able to move allows the animal to hunt other types of prey. It has internal tentacles that it can deploy rapidly onto its intended food. Around its mouth, small teeth have developed to pre-digest its food. Unlike the previous squid, the baleen squid did not descend from terrestrial animals. They have always lived in the oceans. With the successive disappearances of giant filter-feeding animals, the ecological niche they occupy is continuously freed up, and 200 million years later, it will be squid species that dominate it. Baleen-like structures have grown between their tentacles, creating a sort of cage that traps planktonic microorganisms that the squid slowly aspirates. These animals are immense, almost larger than blue whales for the oldest individuals. They swim slowly, aided only by their caudal fins, which must move animals weighing over 150 tons. They always remain close to the ocean's surface, not descending below 1,000 meters in depth, because their immense bodies cannot withstand the enormous pressures of the ocean depths. Jabria is a small parasitic squid that attaches itself to large organisms using its suction cups, thereby saving a tremendous amount of energy. It feeds on particles it can catch while hitching a ride. Typically, many small animals seek shelter under large animals, which is an advantage for Jabria. As they age, their tentacles and fins atrophy because they use them less and less. They are much more active when they are young, with their suction cups not fully developed, making it difficult for them to stay attached. For reproduction, females lay eggs that males will fertilize later if they find them. They are highly prolific animals. Out of thousands of fertilized eggs, only about a dozen will reach adulthood. The parasitism of this squid poses no problem to its host, nor does it interfere with swimming. The squid is too small in comparison to its host to slow it down. The Great Bjorn is a large flying squid that traverses kilometers above the waves of the vast ocean on the planet of the future. With a wingspan of over 7 meters, it can effortlessly glide on warm air currents, spreading the thin membranes between its tentacles. This squid no longer truly returns to the water's surface, yet it still breathes underwater. When at rest, it remains buoyant on the surface. Its eyes are oriented forward, slightly downward, enabling it to track its prey in flight and dive on them unexpectedly. It then consumes its prey while floating, using 2 small tentacles under its body to manipulate and guide the prey toward its mouth, located underneath its body. Although it can glide for over an hour, it never ventures above continents. It is too dependent on water for breathing, and there is nothing of interest to them on land. Landing on land would be a death sentence, as they are incapable of moving other than by flying. The pteridon is a distant descendant of small shrimp that inhabited the oceans during the Mesozoic and Cenozoic eras. In the future, with fewer large fish species, it has found its ecological niche, somewhat similar to that of barracudas. It is a swift predator that feeds on smaller prey, with a bluish coloration that makes it difficult for most of its prey to spot and too fast to escape from. They live in small schools near the surface, but they can also ambush prey in the twists and turns of coral reefs. All their limbs are clustered around the head to manipulate prey. Their muscular body undulates for swimming, and they have a horizontal caudal fin that allows them to make rapid accelerations. Other shrimp have taken over the ecological niche of other extinct large fish, such as the tubel, which has clearly filled the ecological niche of extinct tunas for millions of years. These shrimps are very fast and built to traverse oceans over very long distances. They are cosmopolitan animals and are among the most numerous species on the globe. They seem to form the basis of the diet for most large animals. They measure almost 3 meters long, providing excellent caloric intake, but it requires a tremendous amount of energy to successfully catch one. Additionally, they have a fairly strong carapace covering their head, which is streamlined for good hydrodynamics, and their small black eyes allow them to see almost 360 degrees around them. The mulin could be considered living fossils due to the ancient lineage they belong to. 200 million years ago, swordfish and sailfish already roamed the oceans. They were once the fastest fish, but some species have developed other abilities. Sailfish used to have only one dorsal sail, but now this sail has split and elongated. The mulin traverses the seas like its ancestors, but it is much slower. When attacked and needing to flee, it can leap out of the water and beat its long dorsal sails to rise into the sky. It can fly for several hours if its gills remain moist for that long. Sometimes, it even hunts other flying marine animals, as they have better control over their flights than those that simply glide. The azog diver is a curious descendant of salamanders. With the climate changes caused by the gathering of continents, many ecosystems have shifted, redistributing the cards of life. While some amphibians have been able to remain in marshy environments, others have sought refuge in different habitats, such as the azog, which has become a completely marine animal. Its legs have transformed into fins, giving it the ability to swim much like the pliosaurs of the Mesozoic era. With its large mouth, it can devour large animals, acting as an ambush predator lurking on the seafloor, hidden within the strange vegetation of continental shelves. They rarely venture into deeper zones where much larger predators reside. The backflip mantique is another species of mantique that inhabits the Cyclopean Ocean. Its last ribs have elongated to form rear lateral fins, and with this pair of wings, each undulation of the serpent-like body concludes with a powerful propulsion. Originally, serpents undulate horizontally, but mantiques are the only ones to undulate vertically, similar to mammals. They have a small mouth and can only prey on small prey, which they easily catch due to their incredible speed and agility. These animals are viviparous and must frequently surface to breathe. To maneuver through coral reefs, they can fold their ribs backward, but they are much slower in this position. The king mantique is quite similar to the previous species, but in its case, it's the ribs located at the front of the body that have developed. With this morphology, this animal has powerful but not particularly fast swimming abilities. It is slightly larger and more imposing than the previous species, and it hunts its prey by ambushing them, rapidly deploying its ribs to surprise them. Males have a sort of crest above their heads that turns reddish during their breeding period. They are territorial and aggressive towards their own kind, and males engage in fierce mating battles, often fatal for the loser. Their tails are oriented horizontally, like all mantiques, as their bodies undulate in the same direction as cetaceans. Moragoro is a gigantic sea monster, a distant descendant of iguanas. It is a slow animal that no longer has a hind quarter. However, unlike all other animals that were once terrestrial and developed a caudal fin, these reptiles have developed several, sometimes more than 20. They are herbivores with a long lifespan. Individuals can live for over 200 years. These animals mostly stay head down, grazing on seaweed at the bottom of the ocean, while their tails sway with the water currents, giving them the appearance of strange, scaly corals themselves. During mating, the couple intertwine their tails and remain attached to each other for several hours. The female gives birth to fully formed offspring that remain in their mother's tails during the early stages of their lives. The boreal belental is a massive turtle without a shell that has taken the place of giant plankton-eating cetaceans. It has also developed baleen to trap microorganisms in its mouth before swallowing them. It is a viviparous animal that cares for its offspring and protects them against predators. These slow-moving animals rely on their large size as their primary defense. They inhabit what was once known as the Arctic Circle. However, the polar ice caps have not seen ice for millions of years, and the oceans are much warmer than in our time. Despite this, these new turtles appear very similar to mammals. They have warm blood, and their skin seems much less scaly than that of their ancestors. The clam-eater crocodile, as its name suggests, is a durophagous crocodile that feeds on shelled mollusks and crustaceans. This dietary preference has led these animals to have very strong and thick jaws adapted for crushing, as well as a powerful jaw. For millions of years, crocodiles have occupied this ecological niche, but this species has developed very robust forelimbs with powerful claws that help dislodge shellfish firmly attached to rocks. These forelimbs also serve as an excellent means of defense against animals that dare to attack them or for interspecific combat. They do not engage in mating battles, but they are territorial and fiercely defend their feeding grounds. The grabole is a blind abyssal snail, with only its jaw protruding from an unfurled shell. This shell is indeed very sturdy, reinforced with steel. It has 2 tentacles that emerge from its mouth when it wants to feed. This animal cannot swim and relies on currents to move. It floats thanks to gas pockets that counterbalance the heavy weight of its shell. For reproduction, since only the mouth emerges from its shell, graboles must engage in a sort of kiss to reproduce. Once currents bring individuals together, they remain attached to each other for several hours, after which both individuals will be fertilized. They will then have to spawn through the mouth, releasing their eggs into the water. Though resembling a serpent, the snuid is actually a cephalopod closely related to squids. Its black body is actually a tentacle that undulates behind it for movement, while the other 7 tentacles have atrophied and completely disappeared. All organs and the rest of the body of this strange animal are concentrated in the brown area. It possesses 2 small tentacles near its beak to aid in manipulating its food. It resides in the depths of the ocean, at a minimum depth of 3,500 meters. Its locomotive tentacle is very fragile and sensitive. It primarily moves over sandy or organic substrates and carefully avoids rough rocks. The Death Eater is a blind squid that does not swim, instead, it crawls along the ocean floor. It can thrive at any depth, as its soft body is unaffected by the immense pressure of the abyssal depths. Although it cannot see, it possesses a powerful sense of smell and can detect the scent of dead animal carcasses from kilometers away. This animal feeds on such carcasses, as well as on excrement and particles that sink to the ocean floor. They are widespread creatures, solitary but often gathering around a large carcass if it can sustain them all. They reach a maximum length of 50 centimeters and have a long lifespan due to their slow metabolism. The environment they inhabit is extreme in terms of pressure, complete absence of light, cold temperatures, and scarcity of resources. Thobotsika is a massive walking squid descended from terrestrial species but has returned to the marine environment. It moves slowly along the ocean floor, with a maximum depth of 2,000 meters occasionally. It may approach coastal areas but remains submerged. It has 4 broad, tubular locomotive tentacles that support the animal and 4 longer, thinner tentacles ending in claws used to catch small prey around it. With its large beak, it can crush the shells of crustaceans or bivalves. Its eyes are oriented towards the rear of its body because the animal walks upside down, on the side of its abdomen. There is no significant sexual dimorphism, and females do not care for their offspring. In the early stages of their development, these animals are faster and capable of swimming. They can live for over 150 years. Colossum is a highly intelligent and social creature. It has developed complex communication with its peers and appears to use telepathy, as it produces no sound. Its black and white tentacles can rapidly change patterns, creating optical illusions. It employs this ability to induce trance-like states in its peers, opening their minds to access the organs that emit telepathic waves. Colossum also uses its psychedelic tentacles to hypnotize its prey, making it easier to capture them without resistance. It possesses a huge beak located under its head, between its 8 tentacles. Its soft body enables it to squeeze through tiny holes, but it has an incompressible helmet above its eyes. Despite their sophisticated communication abilities, these animals are generally solitary and exhibit behavior that easily turns aggressive at the slightest provocation. The scorpions of the Holocene were distant descendants of giant sea scorpions, with many species remaining terrestrial. However, with the expansion of the Cyclopean Ocean, opportunities arose for these animals. All the genes related to adaptation to marine environments were present, dormant in their organisms. When they returned to the water, their appearance reverted to that of their ancestors. Interestingly, visiting the oceans of the future in certain regions gives the impression of visiting the oceans of the Paleozoic era. However, these new sea scorpions inhabit deeper and colder waters. They are large predatory animals that hunt in ambush among rocks or buried in sandy bottoms. There exists a species of tubel that inhabits deeper waters. These creatures are solitary and do not undertake long migrations. Their population is also less dense because food resources in abyssal environments are scarcer. These shrimp-like organisms have small eyes, and many of the animals they prey upon are bioluminescent, allowing them to spot their prey visually. They themselves blend in with the color of the rocks that punctuate their environment. When a threat approaches, they hunker down on the seabed and remain motionless. Since they are not fast swimmers, fleeing elsewhere would serve them no purpose. Myriapods are a group of arthropods known for their segmented bodies and multitude of articulated legs. They have always been terrestrial animals, but the sea myriapod has adapted to marine life. A thin, flexible membrane has developed between its legs, allowing it to swim by undulating its legs along the entire length of its body. Its swimming technique is quite similar to early arthropods like Opabinia or Anomalocaris. It moves fairly quickly and is flexible enough to navigate through the rocky meanders of the seabed. It is a predator with powerful mandibles located under its head, capable of breaking thick shells. Some individuals can measure over 4 meters long. Their eggs float in clusters on the water's surface. Once hatched, the offspring sink to the bottom of the oceans. The spineless urchin is the most widespread species throughout the vast ocean of the future. In reality, it's difficult to determine whether they are closer to sea urchins or sea cucumbers because they have small legs under their bodies like both. The notion that they lack spines like sea urchins isn't entirely true. In fact, their spines are flattened and lying down, forming a protective shell-like structure, a characteristic that resembles sea urchins. They feed on polyps from abyssal corals, with their mouth and anus located under their body being the same opening. Once a year, they gather in clusters of several million for a reproductive orgy, with many dying crushed by their peers. The survivors bury their eggs in the sedimentary soil of the abyss. The angler shark is a distant descendant of sharks, abyssal sharks that have been around since the beginning of the Cenozoic era, and likely even before. They have undergone significant competition with the arrival of new cephalopods and crustaceans, but the disappearance of many bony fish has left numerous ecological niches vacant. This shark has 2 types of tentacles at the front of its lower jaw, allowing it to scrape the sedimentary bottoms of the abyss in search of hidden small invertebrates. It moves slowly in an environment where light never penetrates. The females are much larger than the males, with the males having only one function, to find a female to fertilize, after which they are eaten by the female herself. The pelican tadpole is a gigantic descendant of Europharynx. These animals have grown immensely to escape their predators. Abyssal gigantism is also a form of adaptation to an environment where resources are scarce. By becoming so large, it has developed an enormous mouth capable of swallowing prey whole, primarily mollusks, sometimes even larger than itself. It has tiny, fine teeth that it rarely uses. Its swallowed prey is slowly digested in its expandable stomach. These fish can live for over 500 years and may not eat for more than 10 years after consuming cephalopods weighing several tens of tons. It swims slowly in an environment without boundaries, capable of descending to colossal depths where it's difficult to ascertain what they find there. The Ouroboros is the largest creature of all time, capable of exceeding 380 meters in length, a size possible only in vast marine environments like the Cyclopean Ocean. This animal devours the largest marine species on this planet, with a mouth large enough to swallow a school bus. It lives in the deep depths, but it occasionally approaches the surface to attack new prey. It fears no other form of life around it, yet these animals are quite rare. They reproduce only once per century, and females lay only 1 egg. These animals can live for over 900 years. They are solitary and rarely encounter others of their kind. Typically, they do not attack each other. Instead, they spend time together and seem to communicate before parting ways again, only to encounter other individuals several years later.